Hello everyone, and welcome back to Gone Legends. In today's video, we remember three beloved figures who left us recently. Artists, actors, and creators whose lives changed entertainment forever. Before we begin, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's celebrate their remarkable stories.
Diane Keaton, born on January 5, 1946, in Los Angeles, California, was one of the most distinctive and beloved figures in Hollywood history. Her name became synonymous with authenticity, a woman who brought honesty, humor, and heart to every role she touched. Keaton's journey to stardom began on stage, but it was in film that she found her true home. Her breakout role came as Kay Adams in the Godfather trilogy, a character whose quiet strength and moral depth anchored some of cinema's most powerful moments. Playing opposite legends like Al Pacino and Marlon Brando, Keaton proved she could hold her own in a world dominated by men, leaving an indelible mark on one of the greatest stories ever told. Her career reached new heights when she collaborated with filmmaker Woody Allen, becoming both his muse and creative equal. In 1977, she delivered an unforgettable performance in Annie Hall, a film that redefined modern romance and earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. With her effortless charm, unique style, and natural warmth, she captured the complexity of love, independence, and self-discovery. La Dida, her playful line from the film, became a symbol of her quirky, irresistible spirit. Diane Keaton's artistry went far beyond Annie Hall. She shone in Manhattan, Reds, Baby Boom, Father of the Bride, and Something's Gotta Give, each time showing audiences a different shade of humanity, vulnerable yet strong, funny yet profound. Whether portraying a career-driven single mother or a woman rediscovering love later in life, Keaton brought a rare emotional honesty that made her characters timeless. But her creativity extended far beyond acting. Diane Keaton was also a director, photographer, and best-selling author. She explored architecture, fashion, and photography with the same curiosity she brought to film. Her books and images revealed a woman deeply fascinated by beauty, memory, and the meaning of home. Through every project, she expressed a restless imagination and a boundless desire to create. On October 11, 2025, Diane Keaton passed away at the age of 79. Her death marked the end of an era, the loss of a performer whose influence spanned generations. Yet, her spirit remains alive in the characters she portrayed and in the millions who saw themselves reflected in her wit, vulnerability, and authenticity. Diane Keaton's legacy is one of courage and individuality. She showed the world that strength can be quiet, that humor can heal, and that being true to yourself is the greatest performance of all. Born Michael Eugene Archer on February 11, 1974, in Richmond, Virginia, D'Angelo was a musical prodigy destined to change the sound of modern soul. The son of a Pentecostal minister, he grew up surrounded by gospel, rhythm, and truth. By the age of 3, he was already playing the piano, and by adolescence, he was leading music in his father's church. That deep spiritual foundation shaped the voice and the vision that would later define his career. In the mid-1990s, R&B was shifting toward glossy production and pop appeal, and then came D'Angelo. With his 1995 debut album Brown Sugar, he reintroduced warmth, intimacy, and groove into mainstream music. Songs like Lady, Cruisin', and the title track felt like time travel, a return to the roots of soul while still sounding fresh and new. The album wasn't just a hit, it was a revival. Critics and fans hailed him as the voice who brought emotion back into R&B. Then came his masterpiece, Voodoo, released in 2000. It was more than an album, it was a revolution in sound. Blending funk, hip-hop, gospel, and jazz, Voodoo felt raw, sensual, and deeply human. Tracks like Untitled, How Does It Feel, and Spanish Joint became cultural touchstones, and D'Angelo's performance style, passionate yet spiritual, redefined what soul music could be. He wasn't just an artist, he was a movement, helping create the neo-soul era alongside visionaries like Lauryn Hill, Erykah Badu, and Maxwell. But with success came pressure, and D'Angelo retreated from the spotlight. For more than a decade, fans waited. wondering if his voice, that unmistakable voice, would ever return. Then in 2014, seemingly out of nowhere, he delivered Black Messiah, a politically charged, emotionally raw album that spoke directly to America's pain and resilience. It wasn't just a comeback, it was a statement. Songs like The Charade and Really Love reminded the world that his art had only deepened with time. On October 14, 2025, D'Angelo passed away at the age of 51. The news sent shockwaves through the music community. Artists, fans, and peers mourned not only a legend but a man whose music touched the soul itself. D'Angelo's legacy is eternal. His sound carried the warmth of the church, the rhythm of the streets, and the spirit of freedom. He gave the world music that was smooth, sensual, and sacred all at once, proving that soul never dies when it comes from the heart. Transition, and now, from music to cinema, we remember a legend who brought warmth, wit, and authenticity to every frame. Samantha Eggar, one of the most elegant and versatile actresses of her era, was born on March 5, 1939, in London, England. Her journey to stardom began not on a movie set, but on the stage, where she developed the grace, precision, and emotional depth that would define her screen presence for decades to come. Her breakthrough came in 1965 with The Collector, a haunting psychological drama that captivated audiences around the world. Her performance as Miranda Gray, a young woman held captive yet refusing to surrender her spirit, was nothing short of extraordinary. For that role, she received an Academy Award nomination, won the Best Actress Award at the Cannes Film Festival, and took home a Golden Globe, a rare triple recognition that instantly established her among Hollywood's finest. Samantha Eggar's career was a masterclass in versatility. She brought sophistication and wit to Dr. Dolittle, 1967, depth and intelligence to The 7% Solution, 1976, and fearless intensity to David Cronenberg's horror classic The Brood, 1979. Each performance revealed a different side of her, refined yet daring, elegant yet unpredictable. Her talent wasn't confined to film alone. Eggar lent her distinctive voice to animation, most notably as Hera in Disney's Hercules, 1997, where her regal tone perfectly embodied the Queen of the Gods. She also made memorable appearances on television in Star Trek, The Next Generation, Columbo, The Saint, Walker, Texas Ranger, and All My Children, captivating audiences across generations. Beyond her undeniable beauty and poise, Samantha Eggar was known for her intelligence, discipline, and quiet strength. She represented an era of performers who combined craft with mystery, an artist who could command attention without ever demanding it. On October 15, 2025, Samantha Eggar passed away peacefully at the age of 86. Her death marked the loss of a true screen legend, but her legacy remains vibrant in every performance she left behind. Her work reminds us of a golden age of storytelling, when grace met strength, and every glance, every word, and every silence carried meaning. Her artistry continues to captivate, transcending time and trend, inspiring actors and audiences alike to believe in the power of subtlety, dignity, and truth in performance. Transition from the world of film, we turn now to music, to a man whose sound helped define a generation and reshape R&B forever. Ace Frehley, the original lead guitarist of Kiss, was born Paul Daniel Frehley on April 27, 1951, in the Bronx, New York. Known to millions of fans as the Spaceman, Ace wasn't just a musician, he was a phenomenon. His mix of raw guitar energy, charisma, and otherworldly style helped define one of the most iconic rock bands in history. When Ace joined Kiss in 1972, the group was just beginning its journey toward global stardom. Frehley brought with him not only his unique sound, but a persona that perfectly captured the band's wild imagination, silver makeup, space-age costumes, and a mysterious, cosmic stage presence that thrilled audiences everywhere. He was the spark that made Kiss larger than life. His guitar work became legendary. With songs like Shock Me, Cold Gin, and Save Your Love, Ace brought fire and melody together in a way that defined 1970s rock. His 1978 solo album, especially the hit New York Groove, showcased his independence and swagger, a love letter to his hometown that still echoes through arenas and playlists decades later. Behind the makeup and bright lights, Ace was a true musician, innovative, fearless, and always pushing the boundaries of what rock could be. His riffs inspired countless guitarists, and his stage presence taught fans that rock and roll was not just music, but a lifestyle of energy, rebellion, and freedom. In 1982, Ace Frehley parted ways with Kiss, beginning a new chapter as a solo artist. Through the 80s and beyond, he continued to record and tour, staying true to the raw spirit that made him a legend. Albums like Frehley's Comet and Anomaly proved that his creativity burned as bright as ever. Then, in 1996, the impossible happened. Ace rejoined Kiss for a massive reunion tour. The band's original lineup, back in makeup, performed to sold-out crowds around the world. It was a triumphant return, a celebration of legacy, brotherhood, and the sound that defined a generation. On October 9, 2025, Ace Frehley passed away at the age of 74 after a fall at his home in Morristown, New Jersey. His sudden death shocked the rock community, but his influence remains untouchable. To fans, he will always be the spaceman, the man who took rock to the stars and back. Ace Frehley's music and spirit live on in every power chord, every stage light, and every dream of a kid picking up a guitar for the first time. His life was proof that when you believe in your sound, you can make the universe your stage. Transition from the loud energy of rock, we move now to the quiet grace of the silver screen, and to an actress whose performances left audiences spellbound. His name is Neil Leslie Diamond. Born January 24, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York, and for the record of our ages and memories, he lived until 2024. He was a singer, songwriter, musician, and a maker of songs that became the bones and breath of other people's lives. Anthems for weddings and rallies, bedtime hums and drunken consolations, the soundtrack for highways and lonely kitchens. He became famous because he wrote the honest sentences of the heart and then sang them with a voice that felt like confession and celebration all at once. This is the story of a boy from Brighton Beach who turned silence into song, the story of hunger, of hard work, of triumph, and of costly love, the story of songs that found a way into the collective memory and stayed there. This is the life of a man who gave so much of himself to the music that sometimes he came home with nothing left to give. He was the son of immigrants, a family stitched together by sacrifice and small mercies. Akiba Kiev Diamond and Rose Diamond taught the value of work and the courage to hope. Winters were lean. Apartment walls were thin. The radio, a battered radio, became a window to a world that seemed larger than their cramped rooms. From the beginning, Neil was more listener than talker. He watched, he felt, he stored away moments like small coins. At 15, his parents scrimped and saved to give him a $9 guitar. That battered instrument was not a toy. It was salvation. The boy with the cheap guitar learned chords until his fingers blistered and bled, and he taught himself how to make loneliness shape itself into melody. He wrote songs for girls, for mornings, for the ache in his chest, and in the quiet of his room he learned that music could make a life speak. He graduated high school and won a scholarship to study at New York University. Expectations said medicine, a steady future, a respectable life. But Neil's mind kept drifting toward songs. While others studied anatomy, he visited Tin Pan Alley and knocked on the doors of publishers, guitar in hand. No for a long time was as common a sound in his life as breath. He left college 10 credits short, not to be reckless, but because the pull of the music was larger than the promise of a degree. He took a $50 a week job writing songs, a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff and trusting there would be something solid to land on. The early years were survival dressed as hustle. He lived in a room above jazz clubs, he ate on coins, he wrote through cold winters and hotter rejections. His first singles didn't climb, they sank. He learned to take rejection and turn it into stamina. Then, slowly, a break, songs he wrote for others began to register. He wrote Sunday and Me for Jay and the Americans, and the song climbed the charts. The world listened. That small validation was everything, proof that his inner voice could echo outside his lonely room. He wrote hits for others, among them, a song that would explode in the hands of the Monkees, I'm a Believer, A pop sensation. The song raced across radio waves and jukeboxes and introduced the world to the craft of a young songwriter who could write a hook that lodged itself in the national memory. Yet for the man who wrote it, the applause was a complicated thing. A doorway into fame, but also a reminder that the world often loves the song more than the soul who made it. He stepped into the light himself. Early solo recordings, Solitary Man, Cracklin' Rosie, Song Sung Blue, I Said, began to define a voice that was at once vulnerable and grand. His baritone carried a kind of sincerity that felt like a personal conversation even in the middle of a stadium. And then, one of those rare gifts that arrives like a meteor and changes everything, Sweet Caroline. Written in a Memphis hotel room, inspired by a brief fragment of thought and a single idea of innocence, it bloomed into something larger than songwriting, a ritual. When that first chorus rose at a live show, people didn't merely clap, they joined. Sweet Caroline became less a record and more a communal breath, hands raised, voices together, strangers linked for 3 minutes and 27 seconds. That chorus, so good, so good, so good, became an exhale the world shared. And for Neil, the beautiful paradox held. He wrote a song that made crowds feel like a single voice, and yet the man behind the melody often watched those crowds from a distance, feeling something that applause could not touch. Success, though, is rarely a quiet blessing. The 1970s made him a phenomenon. Records flew off shelves. Tours grew longer. The stage lit him like sun. But as the spotlight swelled, so did the cost. Years on the road are years away from home. Nights in hotels are nights away from dinner tables and bedtime stories. 2 marriages and a series of absences shaped his private life into a ledger of love and loss. The demands of creating, performing, and giving everything every night pulled at the seams of family. He was married young and fathered children who would grow into adults asking the most honest questions. Where was Dad tonight? Why is he on TV more than he is at the table? Fame can dress itself in laughter and platinum plaques, but at the end of many nights there was a quiet house and a man who had poured himself out until he was ragged. He once said the stage is where he was most alive, and also where he died a little each night. That paradox, being both animated and exhausted by the same life, lived with him always. There were health scares along the way. At the height of his career, he collapsed on stage and was rushed into surgery to remove a spinal tumor. Before the operation, fearing the worst, he wrote letters to his children. After, he woke up and whispered the question every singer must dread, "Can I still sing?" He could, and he sang for decades more. But the memory of that near loss haunted him, a reminder that the vessel for his art was fragile. He tried many canvases. Broadway welcomed him, Hollywood called him, and his music scored films. Some of those ventures glowed and some faltered. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, a project meant to stretch art and sound, failed in one way and triumphed in another. While the film flopped, his soundtrack soared. He learned the complexity of collaboration, that art can be celebrated and misunderstood in equal measure. He learned that sometimes the medium will betray intention, and yet a good song can outlive the failures that housed it. The 1980s and 1990s carried both the high points and the quieter, difficult years. Personal life ebbed and flowed, friendships remained, and tragedies visited. He lost family members, a father, a brother, and those losses struck differently than any review or applause ever could. Grief changed the shape of his music. It brought a tenderness, a kind of learned humility to songs that had once been fiery declarations and now became quieter confessions. And then, the harshest news came in time: Parkinson's disease. For a performer whose life is measured in rhythm and gesture, diagnosis is a private calamity. In 2018, Neil Diamond announced that he would retire from touring because of Parkinson's, a public and dignified declaration of the end of a chapter. It was, for many fans, a moment of heartache. For the man himself, it was a surrender to reality and an act of courage, to stop while the love for the work was still intact and to protect what remained of the craft and the body that made it. Parkinson's reshaped his days, but it did not silence his spirit. He stopped touring, yes, but never stopped making music of a different kind, softer, more intimate, sometimes private. He found refuge in quiet rooms and the presence of those who stayed. He married later in life. He chose love and companionship, and he found steadiness in partners who sheltered him from the demands he'd once placed on himself. He wrote, he hummed, he played when fingers would allow, and he accepted help when his body needed it. If we measure achievements in milestones, he had an astonishing list. Over a career that spanned half a century and beyond, he sold tens of millions of records, songs that charted across generations. His music earned awards and honors. His concerts filled arenas. His lyrics threaded into movies and into the small rituals of everyday people. A chorus at a baseball game, a refrain at a wedding, a hum in a kitchen while someone washes a plate. Sweet Caroline alone became a cultural phenomenon, the kind of song that appears in the public memory like a landmark, instantly recognizable, endlessly returned to, and strangely comforting. But the real achievement is less tidy than trophies. His real accomplishment was the way his songs became gifts for the listener, anointed places where strangers could feel less alone. He wrote with a voice that admitted doubt and found grace in simple expression. He turned loneliness into beauty. He turned confession into an invitation. There are millions of ways to measure influence, but none are more honest than a roomful of strangers finishing one another's sentences to the tune of a chorus they all know by heart. He gave up a great deal to. There were divorces that carved his home life into chapters. There were nights he spent exhausted and hollowed. There were personal battles that no backstage manager could fix. Fame amplified everything, the joy and the ache. Critics sometimes misunderstood him, or worse, tried to compress him into a particular label that never fit the man whose songs refused to be anything but plainly human. And yet he kept giving. He toured until his body needed rest. He wrote until his hands felt used up. He donated quietly, supporting children's hospitals, Parkinson's research, veterans' causes, making gifts without fanfare because the work mattered more than the applause. He built an influence that went beyond sales, that bent toward generosity and quiet stewardship. When we ask where he is now, we have to speak in the tenderness of memory. He spent his last years in a quieter life, grounded by family, protected by a partner who understood the man behind the stage persona. He retreated from the touring life and found space to breathe. The mountains and the hush offered a new kind of amphitheater, not built of lights and crowd, but of morning light and the steady rhythm of small acts. He lived his last days as someone who had sung to the world and then, gently, retreated to be sung to in return. His legacy is both public and private. Publicly, he leaves a catalog of songs that will be sung for a long time, stitched into sports arenas, flash mobs, and family playlists. Private legacies are quieter, children who carry his standards, friends who remember late-night conversations, the people who felt less lonely because he put words to those days. His music remains a bridge between strangers, across generations, between sorrow and celebration. To speak of him only as a hitmaker would be to miss the ache and the mercy of his art. He captured, like few others, the ordinary interior lives of people, the longings, the small victories, the salvations. He taught us that a good chorus can be an act of communal therapy, that a melody can become the way we keep memory alive. So tonight, listen close. The sound of him is still there. It lives in stadium refrains and in the hush of someone's living room where a record plays low. It lives wherever someone hums to themselves and remembers a moment. It lives in the way strangers join their voices at the right time in a chorus, hands raised, and the world feels, for a minute, simpler. He was a man with contradictions, shy and large, intimate and public, generous and sometimes absent. He was a son, a brother, a father, a husband, a friend. He was the man who wrote the lines you sang in your car and the words you hummed to your children. In the end, he gave us a gift that keeps returning. And now, a quiet, direct tribute. Neil Leslie Diamond, a voice that reached across decades, a songwriter who knew the truth that honesty is the most radical thing an artist can give, a human who made millions feel less alone simply by naming what they felt. He taught us how to lift a chorus into a statement of belonging and how to let a lyric become a way to remember. He gave the world melody after melody, and in return the world taught him something crucial, that songs never really die as long as someone keeps singing them. So let us stand, if standing is what we do, and sing the chorus he gave us, not for the fame it recalls, but for the comfort it has offered in rooms and homes and stadiums around the globe. As the voices rise, imagine him listening somewhere, maybe smiling, maybe with a quiet tear, because the work we do for others sometimes returns to us in the tenderest ways. Thank you, Noel. Thank you for giving the world music it could live by. Thank you for the courage to sing your hunger, your love, your loneliness. Thank you for turning silence into song.